First things first, thanks for checking me out. I am new here, so bear with me on the video. If you would, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, the usual. I am going to be doing this daily, so click that bell icon to keep updated. Thanks.
Thousand-year-old coffin in the deserts of Western China. Inside was a man, blue-eyed, about 45 years old. The man was buried with a harp and a set of horse bridles, and almost 2 pounds of marijuana that had somehow stayed green for 27 centuries in the ground. The tomb belonged to a shaman, and the marijuana was a going-away gift. The gentleman who packed this man made sure he'd have enough supplies for the other side. But he wasn't the first person to use this plant. The story starts about 12,000 years ago. Somewhere in East Asia, humans were just starting to figure out farming, and one of the first plants they looked at and thought, let's grow this. That plant was cannabis. Imagine being an ancient farmer and finding a plant that can be turned into rope, woven into clothes, eaten for food, pressed into oil, and used as medicine. That's not a crop. That's the ancient equivalent of finding a Swiss Army knife growing out of the ground. One of the earliest records of cannabis shows up in an ancient Chinese text called the Pen to Zhao Qing, often described as one of the world's first medical handbooks, traditionally attributed to the legendary Emperor Shen Nong. The book recommended cannabis for everything from joint pain to malaria. From China, cannabis spread along the Silk Road. Merchants carried silk, spices, and apparently weed. One of those trade paths ran straight through the Pamir Mountains in Central Asia, and that's where the oldest proof of smoking turned up. High in those mountains, at a burial site called Jirzankal Cemetery, researchers dug into 8 ancient tombs from around 500 BC. Inside, they found wooden braziers filled with charred stones that had been used to burn cannabis. And this wasn't just whatever grew on the hillside. This stuff was potent, way stronger than wild plants in the area. These people were choosing the strong stuff on purpose. They'd heat the stones, lay the cannabis on top, and everyone would breathe in the smoke together while they buried their dead. They were hotboxing funerals 2,500 years ago. Around that same period, a Greek historian named Herodotus was traveling through Central Asia and ran into a group of nomads called the Scythians. The Scythians were legendary warriors. They rode horses, carried bows, and apparently very enthusiastic about their smoke sessions. Herodotus watched them set up small tents, toss cannabis onto red-hot stones inside, and breathe in everything that came off. And Herodotus wrote the whole thing down, his exact words.
It smolders and sends forth such fumes that no Greek vapor bath could surpass it. The Scythians, delighted.
Is it just me, or does he sound a little jealous? For a long time, historians figured he was exaggerating. Then in 1947, a Soviet archaeologist named Sergei Rudenko excavated frozen tombs in Siberia that had been sealed in permafrost for over 2,000 years. Inside, they found tent frames, heated stones, and cannabis seeds. Exactly what Herodotus described. He wasn't making anything up. Then, in 2013, another Scythian tomb turned up in the Caucasus Mountains with 7 pounds of solid gold cups inside. When they tested the residue inside those golden cups, they found cannabis and opium. Ancient warriors were mixing substances out of gold 2,400 years ago. Pretty fascinating, right? But 7 years later, they found something even stranger turned up at Tel Arad in Israel. Researchers examined altars from an ancient kingdom of Judah shrine, about 2,700 years old, and they found something interesting. One altar had frankincense, standard offering, but the other had cannabis, and they'd mixed it with animal dung to keep the burn slow enough to release the smoke properly, which means whoever prepared this knew exactly what they were doing. And it wasn't just them. Every culture that came across this plant found a reason to keep it, because your body was already wired for it before you ever touched it. You naturally produce a molecule called anandamide, named after the Sanskrit word for bliss. Cannabis just happens to produce a chemical that fits into the exact same slot, like a spare key to a lock your body already had, which explains why halfway across the world in India they weren't just using it, they were worshipping it. India has been using cannabis longer than almost anyone. Their oldest sacred text, the Atharva Veda, lists cannabis as one of 5 sacred plants. Lord Shiva, one of the biggest gods in Hinduism, is called the Lord of Bang, a drink made from cannabis leaves and milk. The story says after he swallowed a poison that could have ended the world, it was bang that brought him back to calm. People still make the same drink during Holi and Shivaratri almost 3,000 years later. But India wasn't the end of the story. This plant
We really do live in a simulation. My husband and I cannot find proof of an anniversary trip we know we took. Pictures are gone, no reservations in our emails, no dinner receipts, nothing. What? I told my cat to go and get my other cat who's been lost for 3 months. He glared at me, walked into the woods, and an hour later brought my missing cat home. I know phones are always listening to us, then whatever you're talking about ends up showing up on your phone. But tell me why things I haven't said out loud and have only thought of are also starting to show up. I once found an earring I lost inside an unopened bag of pretzels. When I was little, I was almost going to fall into a ditch, but someone caught my hand. It was raining. I didn't see her face clearly, and my mom was calling out to me, so I ran. Last week, I saw a little girl almost falling into a ditch. I ran and caught her hand just in time, and it was raining, and her mom was calling out to her. This feels like a glitch in the Matrix. My dad died 7 years ago. While me and my fam go around our country like a little trip, I saw someone who looked like my dad. Then he approached me and said, "You look like my dead daughter." We were both confused, but we just exchanged smiles and I ran off, terrified by that encounter for real. Once my phone battery jumped from 2% to 100% after I plugged it in for a second. I wish mine would do that. I have phases where I dream very specific interactions or conversations, and then they happen like a day after or a week after. Lost my father recently, and the expiration date of his ID was the exact day he died. Always when I say a lie about me or make something up, it becomes real and I don't know how. Start telling people you're a millionaire. What are you doing on here? I'll think of someone I haven't seen or remembered in years, and 5 minutes later I run into them. When I'm singing a song in my head and someone near me starts singing it out loud. So weird. Had a deja vu moment at work once. Buddy looked at me and said, "Whoa, you felt that too?" My ex put the wrong birthday on his Facebook and it ended up being the day he died. Someone once said, "You look like a cloud." A few hours later, I was sitting by my window crying about God knows what, and as soon as my first tear fell, a quiet raindrop hit my window. As I cried, the rain fell heavier and heavier, but when I stopped, so did the rain. When I checked the time, and a few minutes later, the time shows it is earlier than the first time I checked. I swear the time jumped backwards, but I can never prove it. I jog on my track at 8 a.m. I see the same 5 random people. One day, I had to prep for work, so I couldn't run until hours later. Got to the track, and it was still the same 5 people. Laugh and tell my husband there's a glitch in the matrix, and now I've never seen those same 5 people there ever again. One time I smelled something so good out of nowhere, it triggered a memory from another life. I saw it so clearly, like it just happened. I ran to tell my friend so I wouldn't forget, but the smell disappeared and I forgot everything. I literally started crying. Smell is the most closely related to memory, by the way. I was in class and I was playing with my bracelet. I was pulling it until I saw and felt that it broke. I went down to clean up the mess I made and the beads were nowhere to be seen. The bracelet was still intact and on my hand. "But you saw it break?" I was walking down a street in Hoboken, New Jersey, and saw a man who looked exactly like my dead dad, like exactly like him at the age he died. We made eye contact and he looked at me just as shocked. Everyone remembers me having surgery and having my tonsils removed as a kid, but I still have my tonsils. I never had the surgery. I was 100% sure my sister was born on a Saturday. I remember vividly saying it and checking the calendar for years because I was also born on a Saturday. And we used to say, "That is so cool." And then suddenly one day I say that again and she goes, "No, I was born on a Wednesday." And I checked the calendar and it was now a Wednesday. I was given a gold and diamond promise ring. A few months later, I found an identical one in my jewelry box. I then had 2 of the same rings and I could never explain it. I somehow bought a duplicate of the same belt this year and then wore one buckled the wrong way and panicked when I couldn't get it off, so I cut it with scissors just to find them both a few days later completely intact. When I was little, I used to sleep next to my mother. One day I woke up first, I looked at her and she was still asleep. Then I left her and went downstairs and strangely, I found her making breakfast. Once when I was a child, I woke up and didn't recognize anything. It felt like I was in another place, but also kind of felt familiar. I didn't recognize the room I woke up in. I decided to go downstairs and I found people there. Again, I felt like I knew them, but I couldn't remember who they were or their names. That made me realize that I also didn't know who I was. Like I did not know my name nor remember where I was yesterday. I was starting to freak out until someone said my name. As soon as they called, all the information came to me. I knew my name. The room where I woke up was my bedroom. The people who were downstairs were my family, and who called me was my mom. Although that information was sent to me in that moment, I remember being still confused during that day. I believe that was the moment they connected me to the Matrix because I don't have a memory earlier to
that science still cannot explain. This is Daniel Kish, widely known as the real-life Batman, and his story is one of the most remarkable of all time. He lost vision in both of his eyes when he was a baby due to aggressive cancer. But instead of relying on a cane like anyone in that situation would do, he taught himself how to navigate the world by making clicking sounds with his tongue and using the echoes to form a mental picture of his surroundings, similar to that of dolphins and bats, giving him details about the size, shape, and even the texture of nearby objects. He calls this technique flash center, but it's more scientifically known as echolocation. Throughout his life, he'd use this technique to learn how to navigate a bike through traffic, go hiking alone at places he's never been, and he's traveled to more than 40 countries. This technique has allowed him to live a highly independent life. He would then go on to start a nonprofit school to teach others the techniques he uses, where students have successfully completed solo and guided hikes at places like the Grand Canyon, Death Valley, Mount Whitney, and the Appalachian.
Real. First, there's a mirrored wooden cabin out in the California desert that blends in so perfectly, it almost disappears. Second, this art setup in front of Paris City Hall looks like a giant floating grass ball, but the whole thing is actually flat. Third, the parking lot at the Eureka Tower in Melbourne has wild markings that instantly grab your attention in the middle of the city. Fourth, the crooked forest in Poland is filled with hundreds of pine trees with weird curved trunks that look straight out of a fantasy movie. Fifth, what looks like some kind of optical illusion is actually a telephone line in Russia that got twisted and warped after a fire. Sixth, seaweed moving through ocean waves creates shapes that look like giant sea monsters, making the whole scene look creepy as hell. Seventh, after a toxic spill in Hungary back in 2010, the entire landscape turned a crazy deep red color.
What would cause a school superintendent to start stealing money from a school? Is it greed? Does he just hate the kids? What is it? So this scandal all starts with this guy, Frank. And Frank is around 49 years old during this time, living in New York. And Frank, he likes looking and feeling rich. And he's got a good job. I mean, he's the superintendent of a pretty well-off school district, and he makes around $200,000 a year. And that's good money, especially in the 90s. But $200,000 a year isn't enough for Frank. He apparently wants more. So one day in 1996, he gets an idea that's going to help him make more. He's just going to start stealing money from the school district's $83 million budget. So he links up with one of his coworkers, this woman, Pam. And Pam is the assistant superintendent and the business administrator of their school district, which means she oversees all the district's finances. Now, Frank, his theft starts out small. Like he charges his breakfast bagels and his personal lunches to the school district's account. Sometimes he'll charge them for his dry cleaning bills or his personal holiday greeting cards. But eventually, Pam gets them school district credit cards. And she and Frank use these credit cards to buy themselves whatever they want. Like Frank buys himself expensive suits and nice cars and jewelry, because remember, he wants that rich lifestyle. He also gets himself a little plastic surgery, to make himself look better. He takes trips to Las Vegas to gamble. He stays in 5-star hotels. He takes vacations to Boston and New Orleans and the Caribbean and Paris and Thailand. He takes $43,000 worth of flights to London on the very expensive Concorde supersonic airliner. He spends $56,000 of public school funds on a specialized clinical weight loss program. That's an expensive weight loss program, damn. And to make it worse, he also uses the credit cards to withdraw cash. He just straight up withdraws $1,000 a day, just to have. But even after all that, this still isn't enough for Frank. He wants more. So he starts up a fake business called Word Power, and he makes his boyfriend the CEO, and he awards about $800,000 in fake contracts to this business for consulting and other services, and he pays them with the school's money, aka he pays himself. Meanwhile, Pam, she's also living it up. She's spending all the district's money on herself too. Now, regarding those school district credit cards, she goes a little crazy with those. She's already given 24 to Frank and 23 to herself. But she also gives these credit cards out to her friends and family just to spend as they wish. And she gives them out to people in her administrative office that she works with just to make sure that they don't snitch on her. Because, then they'd be snitching on themselves too. Now, in total, Pam gives out 74 school district credit cards to people. So now you have dozens of her friends and family running around spending the school district's money to buy their own personal shit. And so in total, over the course of 6 years, she and Frank have stolen more than $11 million from the district. And, that's cool and all, I guess. But here's where things start to fall apart. So it's now 2002. And one day, Pam's adult son decides to take a trip to Home Depot to buy some construction materials for his contracting business. And when he goes to pay for his stuff, he uses a credit card in the school district's name that his mom had given him. So he's like buying shit for his business using the school's money. The thing is, this Home Depot isn't near the school district, which is in Long Island. This Home Depot is about 35 to 40 miles away. And the clerk ringing him up notices this. And this clerk also notices that the son is filling out the paperwork to have the construction materials delivered to a private residence far away, a facility not anywhere near the school district. And so this clerk gets really suspicious. And later, he calls the school district's administrative office directly, and he's like, why are you having construction materials delivered to a private residence so far away from the district? And this phone call triggers an internal audit. And soon, the school board discovers that Pam's son has been buying shit with a school district credit card to the tune of about $250,000, and that Pam likely gave him this card. And once word gets back to Frank, he immediately starts to panic. Because what if the school district finds out that this wasn't just a few school district credit cards worth $250,000, but that he and Pam actually stole $11 million? So he goes to the school board and he makes his case, and he convinces them to go lenient on Pam, that they should allow her to pay back the $250,000 and that then she can just resign quietly. Otherwise, if the story goes public, the school district will look like its own employees are stealing from the taxpayers, and that would make all of them look bad. And so the school board agrees. And so Pam ends up paying back $250,000, and she quietly resigns. And the school board doesn't report her to the police, so no charges are pressed against her. And so it looks like that's the end of it. No more trouble for her or for Frank. Until a couple of years go by, and it's now 2004, and that is when this girl enters the story. Her name's Rebecca. And Rebecca, she's a senior at one of the high schools in the district, and she also works for the school paper. And one day, Rebecca somehow comes across some information that a school admin, Pam, had stolen $250,000 from the district, and that the district covered it up and allowed her to quietly resign. And Rebecca's like, well, I got to look into this. And so she investigates the hell out of all of this. She starts going to some school board meetings and doing all these interviews with people. And so now the admins know that she's looking into this and that she's likely about to write a story. So the admins come to her and they demand that she leave Pam's name out of the story. So they're saying she can publish it, but don't name Pam personally. They claim it would violate some kind of privacy laws protecting Pam or something. It doesn't. But Rebecca also submits a formal Freedom of Information Act request to view the district's physical bank records and credit card receipts. And the school admins stonewall her, and they drag out the whole bureaucratic process to ensure that the files won't be released until long after her printing deadline has passed. Regardless, Rebecca writes the story and doesn't include Pam's name, and she doesn't include the bank records that she wanted, but the article does get published in her school newspaper. And this blows the story up because actual professional working journalists read and catch on to the scandal, and they write about it in their news publications, including Newsday and the New York Times. And this puts pressure on the county district attorney to launch a criminal investigation. And of course, the school board hires an auditor as well. And during all these investigations, they discover that it wasn't just Pam who had taken $250,000, that it was closer to $11 million, and the district's own superintendent, Frank, was at the center of it. And so, bam, Frank is arrested. And I couldn't find his mugshot, but here he is being arrested. Also, bam, Pam is arrested too. Here's a picture of her. And so ultimately, Frank takes a plea deal and he gets sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison, while Pam also takes a plea deal and she gets sentenced to 3 to 9 years in prison. But the craziest part is that because both Frank and Pam worked for the school district for so long, they are still legally entitled to their pension. So every year, Frank gets paid about $173,000 from the district, while Pam gets paid about $55,000 from the district. Taxpayer funded. That's crazy.
Why did evil people like this exist? During the 1920s, there was a man named Philip D. Cupp who owned a hot air balloon business based in Miami, Florida. For years, his business was highly successful, taking customers over the ocean to see the sights. However, by 1925, disappearances in the area had increased almost 500%, and the authorities were baffled. During the investigation, a local boater reported seeing something strange, a man falling from a hot air balloon. However, by the time the boater reached him, it was too late. The balloon was already heading back to shore. As a result, authorities questioned Philip. However, he claimed he hadn't given any rides that day. He suggested it must have been one of the other balloon companies. There was a problem. Philip was the only person in the area who even owned a hot air balloon. Therefore, investigators came up with a plan. They booked a solo ride for an undercover officer named Joffrey, hoping to catch him in the act. At first, everything seemed normal. The balloon rose high above the ocean. Then Philip broke the silence. He leaned in and said, "What goes up must come down." Suddenly, a violent struggle broke out midair. From the ground, the authorities watched as the balloon shook and swayed back and forth until it suddenly plummeted into the sea below. Neither man survived. However, investigators later uncovered the horrifying truth. Philip D. Cupp had been responsible for over 400 disappearances in the Miami area. Why?
That they told him is when he got on that craft is he said, "Hey, you have my elk," and they said that we often come down to your earth and we take animals and we study them, and you happen to be one of the people that was right there when we were taking that, so we took you too. And I've heard this before from other abductees that, just like you said, we look at and test animals. Apparently they're monitoring the health of our planet by testing animals themselves.
So he said they communicated with him telepathically.
Yes.
What did he say they talked to him about?
So the elk.
Why are they interested in elk?
That's a good question. Now that's an interesting point, because there are more hunters that are abducted or that disappear hunting elk than any other animal. And it's not that there's more hunters hunting elk. There's more hunters hunting deer on the whole in the United States. But for some reason, there's more hunters that disappear hunting elk. And I've said this in my books before. Another thing I've heard from Carl is that he was told that these entities, whoever they are, have the ability to freeze time and space. And remember when I said elk, the elk he was looking at, he said he shot and they didn't move. It's like they were frozen. And they were frozen in that same position when he got on the craft. Time and space being that everything around him, nobody could walk in, nobody could walk out. It's like the time and space that he and the entity and the elk were in were frozen. It's a hard thing to grasp, but I've heard this before. A lot of these people are found under very unusual circumstances, dead at the bottom of an area that you just don't think makes sense. And they couldn't be tracked. So with Carl, when you think about him being taken, a hunter, hunting elk, nobody gets seen, nothing's heard. So I did a circumference around the area where he went, and it's in the movie. There's a group of German hunters. Carl was German hunters that have disappeared. Nobody else but German that have disappeared in that area. And then when you look at the scope of what I've done in my work, I went backwards and I found there's a lot of German people that have been abducted, more than the normal population of people. And these German hunters really were the opening valve to me that something odd was happening with German. That they told.
The CIA is full of dirty pricks. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the latest MK Ultra hearings where they talk about black projects that were affiliated with the CIA and military projects that included abducting people from safe houses, performing these medical procedures on these people who did not give any type of consent, and it's in America and outside of America. And your tax-paying dollars went to that. Check out Project Midnight Climax.
My next question has to do with once the program began. I think one of the most shocking things that we've determined is the Operation Midnight Climax that occurred in the early 1950s, 60s, where the CIA had safe houses. And there was, I'd say, Dr. Kinzer, I mean, this is extremely disturbing behavior that was happening, where you had American citizens who were being lured into these brothels and then dosed with an hallucinogenic and then filmed during their sex acts. Was there anyone prosecuted for these crimes?
No, there have been no prosecutions for any crime related to MK Ultra, as far as I know. To me, the remarkable aspect of that Operation Midnight Climax was that there wasn't even the pretense of scientific experimentation. The person watching behind the one-way mirror was a grossly overweight drug officer sitting on a portable toilet and drinking cocktails out of a pitcher. There was nobody there that was a scientist or somebody who understood sexual behavior or human psychology. So there was no science involved in it at all. I can add a little footnote. When I was researching Poisoner in Chief, I came across a document in which one of the officers involved in setting up that program, Operation Midnight Climax, said that Sidney Gottlieb himself used to fly from Washington out to inspect the project regularly and always asked that women be provided for him. So
that was my next question. Do you think that the agents were involved in the sexual encounters?
And could that have actually been the reason why the bordello was opened? There was no prospect of any serious scientific result out of that project, given the personnel who were overseeing it. So those CIA officers, particularly Gottlieb, involved in overseeing Operation Midnight Climax, certainly were able to take advantage of what it offered.
The CIA is full of dirty pricks. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the latest MK Ultra hearings, where they talk about black projects that were affiliated with the CIA and military projects that included abducting people from safe houses, performing these medical procedures on these people.
Scary Facts You Didn't Know, Part 74. On September 11th, 2001, Pasquale Buzzelli was descending a stairwell in the North Tower of the World Trade Center when the building began to collapse. He later recalled hearing what sounded like a freight train roaring above him. As the tower shook violently and the walls and floor gave way, he curled into a ball in the stairwell. When he regained consciousness, Buzzelli found himself lying on top of the rubble pile in open air. The section of stairwell he was in had remained partially intact as it fell. Covered in dust and injured but alive, he looked around and realized he had survived the collapse of a 110-story skyscraper, an outcome that seemed almost impossible. In 2015, people in the Australian town of Goulburn looked up and saw what appeared to be spiders falling from the sky. Millions of tiny spiders launched themselves into the air using silk threads, covering fields, homes, and roads in thick white webs. To those below, it looked as if the sky itself was raining spiders. In some cases, mass spider ballooning happens after heavy flooding. As rising water swallows their habitat, thousands or even millions of spiders climb to higher ground and release strands of silk to catch the wind. The result can be entire landscapes draped in webbing, creating the eerie sight of a world seemingly taken over by spiders overnight. In 1942, during World War II, anti-aircraft sirens suddenly went off in Los Angeles after radar detected an unknown object offshore. Soldiers fired more than 1,400 shells into the night sky, and searchlights lit up the clouds as thousands of people watched in fear. Witnesses reported seeing a massive silent object hovering over the city that didn't react to the explosions or gunfire. Yet when morning came, there was no wreckage, no debris, and no confirmed aircraft. Only a city left shaken, and a mystery that still has no clear explanation.
These identical twin brothers were pure evil. In 1951, in rural Indiana, twin brothers Samuel and Walter Grady took over the management of Briarwood County Orphanage. After the previous director passed away, they presented themselves as disciplined, organized, and deeply committed to structure. The orphanage quickly became known for its strict routines: meals on time, silence after dusk, no visitors without written approval. However, within 2 years, adoption numbers increased dramatically. On paper, Briarwood was a success. Children were listed as placed with families out of state. Records showed signatures, addresses, case numbers, but something felt wrong. county clerk noticed that several adoption files lacked court stamps. The paperwork looked complete, yet none of the receiving counties had corresponding documentation. When questioned, the brothers blamed clerical error. Then, a former employee spoke anonymously. She claimed some children were never escorted out the front gate. She said the basement storage wing was always locked. In 1954, a traveling auditor arrived without notice. The twins cooperated calmly. Upstairs, everything was clean. Too clean. In the lower records room, the auditor discovered ledgers that did not match the official registry. Several children, marked adopted, were still listed internally as retained. Police obtained a warrant. The basement contained 8 children, hidden in makeshift sleeping quarters, malnourished, silent. The twins had been collecting state adoption subsidies for placements that never occurred. When officers searched for the missing funds, they found something else. A separate ledger, names crossed out, marked transferred. Those children were never located. The Grady brothers were arrested, but the list was never fully recovered. These 2 brothers fed their pigs something that put 2 officers on permanent leave the day it was discovered. In 1948, twin brothers named Mud and Clay Pitts raised pigs on a remote farm deep in rural Mississippi. Their pork was the most sought after in the county. In fact, restaurants drove hours just to buy from them, and people described the taste as unlike anything they had ever eaten. However, nobody ever asked what the pigs were eating. Meanwhile, over the following decade, 67 people went missing across the surrounding counties, all last seen somewhere near the Pitts property. Strangely, all of the cases were closed within weeks. It wasn't until 1958 that a livestock inspector named Brock O'Lee arrived for a routine visit. At first, the farm looked normal and the brothers were cooperative. However, when Brock inspected the feeding troughs, he found them completely empty. So he asked what the pigs ate. Clay simply looked at him and said they had a very special diet. Brock wrote nothing in his report that day. Nevertheless, he came back that same night, alone. He was never seen again. 4 days later, his wife called the department to report his disappearance and mentioned he had been working on the Pitts farm. As a result, officers returned immediately. Inside the troughs, they found shredded clothing, personal belongings, and remains that did not belong to any animal. The 67 missing people had not simply vanished. They had been fed to the pigs. Consequently, Mud and Clay were arrested and convicted. However, the following year, they escaped from prison. 8 months into their sentence, they vanished without a trace, and neither brother has ever been found. The farm was demolished in 1961. This is the true story behind Pennywise. In the summer of 1971, a traveling carnival moved through small towns across Nebraska and Kansas. It stayed 3 nights in each place before moving on. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then something strange kept happening. A 10-year-old boy vanished in one town. 2 more children disappeared within 48 hours of the carnival leaving the next. By early September, 11 children across 4 counties had been reported missing. There were no ransom notes, no confirmed sightings. As the cases grew, state police started mapping the carnival's route. The pattern was exact. Every disappearance happened in a town the carnival had just left. Because of that, authorities arranged a coordinated inspection. During one stop in rural Kansas, they questioned every performer. Among them was a clown known only as Mr. Grin. When investigators tried to verify his identity, they found nothing. Yet he had appeared in every town where children later vanished. Inside his trailer, officers found photographs of children taken near the fairgrounds, burned candles, wooden crates marked with repeating symbols, and handwritten notes mentioning form, vessel, and return. Before warrants could be issued, a fire broke out overnight. 4 trailers burned, including Mr. Grin's. No remains were recovered. The case was sealed. Officially, the carnival was never registered in 1971, and Mr. Grin never existed.
Here are some morbid facts about the 4th of July. Just before the 2015 NFL season, Giants defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul severely injured his right hand when a powerful firework exploded prematurely. The blast shattered multiple bones, caused extensive burns, and forced doctors to amputate some of his fingers. But despite the life-changing injury, he returned to the NFL and later won a Super Bowl title with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In 2015, 22-year-old former Disney World performer Devin Staples, who had previously played Gaston and Goofy at the park, was celebrating the 4th of July with some friends when he attempted to launch a fireworks mortar from the top of his head. The shell exploded instantly, killing him at the scene. His family later said he wasn't trying to do something reckless. He was only pretending to as a joke when the fireworks unexpectedly ignited. This was the moment a single explosion turned Mexico's largest fireworks market into a war zone. The 2016 blast ignited hundreds of tons of fireworks at the San Poblito market in Tultepec, triggering a chain reaction of explosions that leveled most of the market within seconds. At least 42 people were killed and nearly 100 more were injured, with many victims suffering catastrophic burns. Homes surrounding the market were heavily damaged, and several children required treatment for burns covering 90% of their bodies. Despite the disaster, the market was eventually rebuilt, even though Tultepec had already experienced multiple deadly fire explosions in previous years.
People were right. The world just wasn't ready, so the world destroyed them. Number 1. Ignaz Semmelweis figured out in 1847 that doctors washing their hands stopped mothers from dying in childbirth. He proved it with hospital data. Other doctors found the suggestion insulting and refused. He was eventually committed to an asylum in 1865 by his own colleagues. He was beaten by guards and died of his injuries 14 days later. Hand washing became standard medical practice 20 years after his death. Number 2. Alfred Wegener proposed in 1912 that the continents had once been a single landmass and drifted apart. Geologists laughed him out of academic conferences for the next 50 years. He died on a 1930 expedition, still defending his theory. In 1965, plate tectonics was confirmed. He'd been right the entire time. He just died before anyone admitted it. Number 3. Barbara McClintock discovered jumping genes in corn in the 1940s, proving DNA could move within a genome. Male colleagues openly dismissed her work as nonsense for almost 30 years. She stopped publishing because the hostility was too constant. In 1983, at age 81, she won the Nobel Prize. By then, half her career had been wasted being right and ignored. Halfway. The next one literally invented your phone signal and died penniless. Number 4. Nikola Tesla invented alternating current, the radio, fluorescent lighting, remote control, and the basic concept of wireless power. He died alone in a New York hotel room in 1943 in debt, surrounded by pigeons. Thomas Edison got rich. J.P. Morgan got rich. Tesla got a Pixar movie 80 years later. Number 5. Rosalind Franklin took the X-ray photograph that revealed DNA's double helix structure in 1952. Watson and Crick saw her photograph without her permission, published the discovery, and won the 1962 Nobel Prize. Franklin had died of cancer 4 years earlier at age 37. She was never publicly credited in her lifetime. Number 6. Gregor Mendel proved how genetic inheritance worked in 1866 by breeding peas in a monastery garden. The scientific community completely ignored him. He died in 1884, thinking his work would be forgotten. 16 years later, 3 different scientists rediscovered his papers and realized he had quietly solved one of biology's biggest mysteries while everyone wasn't looking. Number 7. Charles Goodyear figured out how to vulcanize rubber in 1839, the invention that made tires possible. He was so poor at the time he was in debtor's prison. He died in 1860, owing $200,000. The tire company named after him in 1898 was founded by someone else who got rich on his idea. If you're frustrated at work and feel like nobody listens to you, just remember Semmelweis got beaten to death for telling doctors to wash their hands. You're doing fine.
Bieber is the only one who posted a music video filled with terrifying hidden messages, and we all misunderstood what he was trying to tell us. The video starts immediately with Justin arriving in some kind of banquet hall filled with men and women who look rich and influential. 2 of the guests are even wearing diamond crowns on their heads, and that detail is not insignificant. We also can't forget that during Diddy's trial, former bodyguards allegedly revealed that princesses attended those parties. Then in the video, the orchestra is made up entirely of children. You have to understand that they are there to entertain the adults, and during that time, the guests are stuffing themselves with extremely strange dishes. To us, the food looks disgusting, yet to them, it all seems delicious. One of the first dishes shown contains cherries, and in Christian artistic tradition, the cherry represents sweetness. But in Canada, Justin Bieber's home country, the symbolism is completely different. When someone says they lost their cherry, it means they lost their The worst part is that at the bottom of the plate, you can see a picture of Justin when he was a child. The message suddenly becomes clear. These people were consuming Justin years ago. Through this video, he is explaining to those who truly see it what he went through during his youth. You can doubt all of this, but just know that Justin clearly confirmed these explanations during an interview a few years ago. Despite how happy he appears in the video, the filming was extremely difficult for Justin. Behind the scenes, it was revealed that he suffered multiple panic attacks and had to delay filming several times because he wasn't feeling well. It brought back very painful trauma for him, and honestly, it's easy to understand why. Maybe that is the price to pay for becoming famous so young. Justin
recorded late at night has genuinely terrified thousands of people online. At first, the footage just shows a dark, empty street with almost no sound at all, making the entire scene feel strangely unsettling. But as the camera slowly moves, something suddenly bursts out from the darkness, and whatever it was did not look like any normal creature. Its lower body looked exactly like a horse, but its upper body appeared twisted and horrifying, almost like some kind of demonic being. Its body was unnaturally thin, and on top of its head were what looked like large horns, clearly visible even in the darkness. But the most disturbing part was the way it moved. It ran incredibly fast, yet its movements looked stiff and unnatural, almost like its body wasn't meant to move the way it did. The person recording immediately panicked, and the camera started shaking violently, but the creature kept running through the darkness without stopping. After slowing the footage down, some people noticed that it seemed to maintain the exact same unnatural posture the entire time, almost as if it was either chasing something or running from something far worse. But the part that truly terrified viewers happens in the final seconds of the video. While running, the creature suddenly turned its head directly toward the camera, and for a brief moment, its eyes became visible in the dark. They did not look human at all. Then the video abruptly cut off.
Why isn't anybody talking about the fact that they had to rescue 16 children from a home in Hamden, Ohio? You heard what I just said? Ohio authorities had to rescue children, 16 children that were confined in their home, locked in for 4 years. A 12 by 12 room filled with human waste, bacteria, and garbage. They were living in crazy conditions. Mind you, people were saying that these people who owned the home were there for around 4 years and they never seen any kids. You had 4 people that was arrested. You had 16 children ranging from the age of 18 to 1.5 years old. There were 3 sets of twins in that house. Mind you, authorities are saying that some of these children didn't even know how to speak correct. They're saying that there's no way that they had any type of education. They had to take 7 children to the hospital. They had to airlift 2 of these children. That's how bad these conditions were. And again, these children couldn't speak or write English. You have some authorities saying that this is the worst thing they ever seen in their entire life. Thank God somebody tipped the authorities off, because it could have been worse than that. 16 children from a home in Hamden, Ohio. You heard what I just said? Ohio.
The water and next. Y'all see what's happening?
I can't live in my home with half of my home functioning and no water, and I can't drink the water.
Just 400 meters away from Beverly Morris's home in rural Georgia, Meta, Instagram and Facebook's parent company, has built a giant data center. A private well is Beverly's only source of water. But since construction began on the data center, the well water has turned murky. The sediment you see, that's from her taps. And she says it wasn't there before.
The water won't come through the water lines to fill the toilet tank, so I have to fill it with a bucket of water. It's plugged with sediment.
Beverly believes the construction is to blame, but Meta denies this.
No one should have to be afraid to drink their water.
Is this making sense now? Water for AI is going to be prioritized over human needs? What? I told you guys about this project, this United States Water Reserve. It's about tokenizing water on the blockchain for artificial intelligence, because you guys see that artificial intelligence is taking over. It cannot be stopped. So the best way to do is to tokenize water on the blockchain for artificial intelligence. And obviously there's something to it, because this thing has been going parabolic. So like I be telling y'all, if you cannot beat them, join them. This is how you position yourself early. You guys want to check this out? This is exactly what I do, man. This is not financial advice. Get yourself a Phantom wallet, and everything for this will be pinned in the comments below, man. When did your age? Let's continue to get this shit. Peace out.
I'm going to show you a picture, and it is seriously scary. So I'm just warning you ahead of time. It was taken by a grandmother of her 2 grandkids after she left their apartment. The grandmother, she's looking up at the window when she took this picture. Do you see it? Obviously you see it. It's her 2 grandkids and something behind them. That's not their mom in shadow. In fact, she didn't even see it in the window. She didn't even notice it till it was on the picture. How could she not have seen this thing? This demon, spirit, shadow person standing right behind her grandkids? Maybe it's something, this creature, this entity, that people just can't see unless they're open to it. But the camera still picked it up, still captured this image. I've seen a shadow being once in my life, about 6 years ago, and it freaked me out for a pretty long time. And while it didn't look like a person, like this thing, it was all dark with white eyes. Just like that. But I want to know what you think. What kind of entity could that be? And why didn't the grandmother see it with her own eyes? Let me know your opinion, no matter what it is, in the comment section. Shabadoo Bushkis, Shabadoo.
3 discoveries nobody was ready for. The last one had a monk's body sealed inside for 1,000 years. Number 1, Germany, 1504. A knight lost his right hand in battle. Blacksmiths built him an iron replacement. Individually moving fingers, controlled by internal springs and ratchets. He gripped a sword, held a shield, and fought with it for decades. No blueprint survived. Nobody built another one this advanced for centuries. Nothing. Number 2, Cairo, Egypt, 2017. Workers hit quartzite under a muddy street in a crowded slum. A colossal royal statue, 26 feet tall, one of the largest ever found from that era. Smashed into 6,000 fragments, scattered across 20 meters. Someone deliberately destroyed it. No record of who or when or why. Nothing. Number 3, Netherlands, 2015. Doctors ran a CT scan on a gilded Buddha statue. Inside, a mummified body folded in the lotus position. A monk who self-mummified through a decade of starvation and poison tea. His organs were gone, replaced with paper scrolls of ancient script. No record of the ritual's outcome survived. Nothing.
Have you ever heard the theory that Cat Williams deliberately avoided all eye contact with Kevin Hart that night? When you understand what he knows about him, it becomes much more serious than a simple feud. On stage, you can see Kevin Hart reaching out his hand. He wants peace, maybe even friendship. He wants to move on in front of everyone. But Cat Williams doesn't react. He keeps his distance, and you can see that he never really looks Kevin in the eyes. Because Cat Williams knows something. He believes Kevin Hart is part of the elite of this industry, and he has openly spoken out about it. Someone who belongs to that level is someone with power. The power to open doors, but also to destroy the people who get in the way. And Cat Williams has always been the opposite of that. He's one of the only people who refused the system, who exposed everything without being afraid. And that's probably why his career never exploded the way Kevin's did, despite his talent. So when he avoids looking at him, it's a message. He refuses to get close to him. He refuses to give him even the slightest opening, because he knows that getting involved with someone from that circle means risking being pulled into the same machine. And that's what nobody noticed. While everyone else saw tension between two comedians, Cat Williams was actually protecting himself.
Ancient machines nobody can explain. The last one ran on steam, 1700 AD, and bury it, no matter which way it took, just gears. The army walked out alive. The original was lost centuries ago. Scholars still argue how it worked. Number 2, Tarentum, Greece, 5th century BC. A wooden bird powered by steam or compressed air flew 200 meters over a crowd before falling. Built by Archytas. No mechanism survived. No record explains how it flew. Nothing. Number 3, Alexandria, 50 AD. A bronze sphere mounted on a boiling cauldron. Steam shot through 2 bent tubes. The sphere spun every time. Hero of Alexandria wrote it down in detail. Nobody scaled it. Nobody industrialized it. The principle sat unused for 1,600 years. Nothing. 3 ancient machines nobody can explain. The last one ran on steam, 1,700 years before the Industrial Revolution. Number 1, China, 220 AD. An army trapped in fog, enemy closing in. A wooden figure on a chariot. No matter which way it turned, the arms stayed locked on south. No magnet, no compass, just gears. The army walked out alive. The original was lost centuries ago. Scholars still argue how it worked. Number 2, Tarentum, Greece, 5th century BC. A wooden bird powered by steam or compressed air flew 200 meters over a crowd before falling. Built by Archytas. No mechanism survived. No record explains how it flew. Nothing. Number 3, Alexandria, 50 AD. A bronze sphere mounted on a boiling cauldron. Steam shot through 2 bent tubes. The sphere spun every time. Hero of Alexandria wrote it down in detail. Nobody scaled it. Nobody industrialized it. The principle sat unused for 1,600 years. Nothing.
Let me tell you this, right?
Women do that now. Women protect the men. Everything you just said that what women do. Women is more masculine than men. Because listen, because who got the houses now? The women. Who got the cars? The women. Who driving it? The men. Listen, who got the jobs? The women. Who getting the taxes and giving it to the men to flip and they never give it back. Right? I'm keeping it real, right? So you got to understand this. Women been controlling the world, but they've been controlling it from the backseat. They need to step up front and let the world know that we doing it, right? Come to you this, right? Every war has started over the love of a woman. And every war has been put back together for love of a woman. You know what? I'm gonna tell you what I mean. Damn, look at the kids. I want to cause peace because I don't want my kids and my wife to die. Oh no, I want to kill because you just took my woman. The woman is the center of everything. That's why I told you it's just like love. What I say love was a double-edged sword. Now what's a woman? Now you get it.
Hot dogs and hamburgers are now the food's fun fact of the day. Hot dogs and hamburgers are now the foods most associated with the 4th of July, but neither came to America for nearly 100 years after U.S. independence. The foods most associated with the earliest Independence Day celebrations were turtle soup and poached salmon, both said to have been eaten by American founders John and Abigail Adams on July 4th, 1776.
Pendek in Sumatra. Have you heard of that?
I don't know what that is.
Orang pendek means a little man. It's like a little Bigfoot, 4 foot tall, covered in red hair, walks upright.
You think it's an orangutan mixed with a human being?
Everybody needs a hobby. I don't know. I don't know. But there was a primatologist there who was there to study orangutans. They watched this orang pendek walk around before it just disappeared into the woods. I have no doubt that anything like a Bigfoot or an orang pendek, if it wanted to hide in its environment, that you wouldn't see it.
But you wouldn't want to see one in person?
I would love to see one in person. Bring one out. Bring him to me. We'll talk. I'll buy him lunch. Orang pendek.
Impact is of having all this energy flowing through these and what it can do to surrounding human life. But we already know what it's doing to our power supply. And certain states are taking moves, but it's got to be national. You can't have. You better be paying attention to what's happening with these data centers. I know what Aaron Brockovich is saying, and we do have to see what the impact is of having all this energy flowing through these and what it can do to surrounding human life. But we already know what it's doing to our power supply. And certain states are taking moves, but it's got to be national. You can't have these super rich corporations that are screwing their workers over and moving everything they can out of the country. Now we've realized, now we see with Taiwan making all the chips and making us vulnerable, that we stopped making the things we need to make and we got to take it all back. That's the key to our future.
This makes sense as to why everything back in the day was made in China and in Taiwan. What happened to that? All that just stopped. It disappeared. It's because AI is taking over, y'all. There's no need for that anymore. It's going to create everything, and Trump wants the public to benefit from this. He's devised a plan with all these tech billionaires that was at his inauguration because he wants the American people to benefit for what's coming with the AI boom. Project has been on chain for quite some time now. It's called the American AI Fund. In fact, I gave this at a very low market cap, at a $1 million market cap, and now it's almost at a $12 million market cap. Predicated upon what you put in, you would have 12 times your investment by now. It's not too late because the American AI Fund is yet to be announced to the public by July 30th. You guys want to know what I do? This is exactly what I do. This is how I position myself early. Grab yourself a Phantom wallet, and the information for this that you will need will pin in the comments below, man. And we're in the digital age, y'all. Let's continue.
Times there were no fishing hooks, and this is how people used to fish. According to old records, there was a very efficient fishing method called Kongming fishing, which used a bamboo clamp. This method was not inferior to modern hooks. First, you take a bamboo branch, cut off the extra twigs, and keep only the part where the bamboo naturally curves. The thicker end is sharpened to a point and then bent until it forms an elastic curve. When fishing, the fishing line is tied to the middle of the bamboo clamp. Next, a piece of fresh reed or wood is cut and boiled in water for about 15 minutes to make it more flexible. After removing it, it is placed in the sun to dry completely. Once dry, it is cut into small rings and then soaked in water again to soften. With the softened reed ring ready, it is fitted onto the bamboo clamp and a peanut is placed inside as bait. Now the Kongming device is ready. It is thrown into the river, and when a fish bites the bait, the reed ring breaks. The stored tension in the bent bamboo makes it snap open quickly, trapping the fish's mouth. This makes it easy to catch the fish. We have more videos like this. Check them out. In ancient times,
we're living in, then you need to see this. So it's a guy on here saying that he cracked the code. He found out that we're living in a 300,000 year long experiment run by advanced civilization. And he believes that each and every one of us here has metadata. And we all have specific things that we're here for. Mind you, after he found out this information, he quit his job. He's giving away his degree. And he's showing you how to figure out your own metadata. You don't believe me, right? Look at this shit.
I am giving away my degree for free. If your name is Daniel William Schmidt, I
Listen.
will personally mail you this. It's an economics degree, one of the best in the world. You can get any job you want.
Get to the
I got a
point.
job in finance. I quit my job because I realized that we are living in a 300,000-year-long experiment
Listen.
run by an advanced civilization, and all of us have metadata. If you take your full name and your date of birth,
Look.
you can find your metadata. I calculated mine, and I started
Look.
crying because it was just so unbelievably accurate. And I realized that every single person has this, and that means we must be in an experiment. Every person is a different trial, and the civilization running this experiment is using this data to perfect their own society.
He goes on to say that we all have an encoded purpose, and his purpose is to build his own America. And that's exactly what he said he's about to do. I'm going to leave y'all with this.
At the top, you have God. God created what I call Civilization 1, and then Civilization 1 created the experiment we're in,
Right.
which is us. So I'm working on a new civilization because I realized that my purpose is to create America 2, because America 1 has served its purpose. So please help me get rid of this degree.
I'm out.
Because this is America.
What happened to John Holmes? John Holmes, the legendary king of 1970s cinema, was born John Curtis Estes on August 8, 1944, in Asheville. The youngest of 4 children, he endured a difficult childhood marked by poverty, family turmoil, an abusive alcoholic stepfather, and a strict Southern Baptist upbringing. At 16, he dropped out of high school and joined the U.S. Army, serving 3 years in West Germany before relocating to Los Angeles for a new beginning. His tall frame and distinctive presence quickly stood out. After working jobs like ambulance driver, shoe salesman, and door-to-door salesman, he entered the entertainment industry in the late 1960s under the stage name Johnny Wad. In the 1970s, Holmes rose to fame through Bob Chin's Johnny Wad series and films like Deep Throat and The Devil in Miss Jones. He became the era's most famous and highest-paid male performer, appearing in hundreds of films, earning up to $3,000 a day, and gaining the nickname King of Adult Films. Yet his story took one of the most shocking and tragic turns in entertainment history. By the late 1970s, severe cocaine addiction and heavy freebasing destroyed his health, finances, and performances. He falsely claimed to have slept with 14,000 women to salvage his fading image. To fund his addiction, he turned to drug dealing, credit card fraud, and theft. In 1981, he became entangled in the brutal Wonderland after associating with a gang and a powerful nightclub owner. He helped set up a home invasion and robbery, and 4 people were later savagely beaten to death. His palm print was found at the scene, leading to his arrest and trial. He also spent months in jail for contempt after refusing to cooperate. Although acquitted, the scandal destroyed his reputation. Diagnosed HIV positive in 1986, he traveled to Italy for 2 final films, The Rise of the Roman Empress and The Devil in Mr. Holmes, without revealing his condition, later claiming he had colon cancer. John Holmes passed away on March 13, 1988, at the age of 43, in a Los Angeles Veterans Hospital from complications related to AIDS. His ashes were scattered at sea.
Doing terrible things to children. Terrible things. You know, they drink their blood. It's too much. It's just too sad. No, you don't understand. These people, they don't go away. They never stop. Not ever. Diana knew that. She was sweet. Very sweet. Sensitive. She still had goodness in her heart. That's dangerous to people like them, because they don't have hearts. They only have secrets. Diana saw too much. She saw that her husband wasn't who everybody thought he was. Diana was disgusted by Charles, and she was scared. I know that fear, because they do the same thing to me. The phone calls late at night, people following you, people pretending to be your friend just to learn your secrets. They want control over everybody. That's how their world works. And if they can't control you, they punish you. They make the whole world turn against you. Then they kill you. That's what hurts the most. Not the newspapers or the accusations. It's watching people believe lies about you because the machine is so big, so powerful. Diana, she knew they were going to kill her. She told me, and I didn't tell anyone. Now I'm
so beautiful.
They're swapping fake ice cream and real ice cream. This disturbing clip exposed a sneaky tactic Breyers is using to push shoppers into counterfeit cream.
Frozen dairy dessert, ice cream. Come on, what's going on?
Breyers didn't just replace the cream. They added something so much worse. Every frozen dairy dessert starts as antibiotic-laced runoff, pumped full of cheap corn syrup, then ripped through pressure tanks with the same gum used in fracking fluid. And that's nothing. That goop is injected with trans fat, dyed yellow with annatto, and inflated with compressed air until it physically cannot melt. Multiple flavors scanned hidden trans fats linked to heart disease. Comment exposer to scan safer brands.
The real-life Michael Myers. He was born in the late 1950s in a small Midwestern town where nothing ever happened. His parents described him as unusually quiet. He rarely cried and smiled either. As a toddler, he could sit for hours staring at walls, as if listening to something no one else could hear. By the age of 6, neighbors had begun avoiding the house. Michael would stand in the front yard on Halloween nights, wearing whatever mask he found that year, watching other children trick-or-treat without ever joining them. If spoken to, he stayed silent. If touched, he didn't react. Inside the home, things were slowly falling apart. His parents fought constantly. His older sister mocked him, calling him broken. Michael learned early that silence was safer than emotion. The less visible he became, the easier it was for everyone to forget he was there. Until one night, they didn't. On Halloween, while his family slept, Michael walked into the kitchen and picked up a knife. There was no anger, no panic, only a strange curiosity, like wondering what would happen if enough pressure was applied. By morning, the house was silent forever. Michael was found standing outside, mask on, knife in hand. He didn't run, he didn't resist. When asked why, he said nothing. Doctors later made a chilling conclusion. Michael didn't snap. He arrived. Years passed behind locked doors in white hallways. No remorse, no change, just that same empty stare. Then one autumn night, he walked out not to escape, but to return, because Michael Myers was never chasing revenge. He was answering a call that began the night he discovered what he was capable of, and once he remembered, he never forgot.
The longer a man stays without a relationship, the more dangerous he becomes. A man who has been alone for too long doesn't become weaker. He becomes harder to reach. Not physically dangerous, not violent, but emotionally, mentally, and relationally. He becomes a completely different kind of man. Time alone reshapes him. It sharpens some things, kills others, and builds walls where doors used to be. Here are 6 uncomfortable truths about what happens when a man stays single for too long. 1. He learns he doesn't actually need anyone. At first, loneliness teaches a man what he's missing. But after enough time passes, something else happens. He adapts. He builds routines. He handles his problems alone. He eats alone, travels alone, sleeps alone, celebrates alone, and survives alone. Eventually, the emotional dependency that relationships often create disappears. What once felt like a need slowly becomes optional. And once a man reaches that level of independence, inviting someone into his life no longer feels necessary. It feels like a disruption. 2. His tolerance for drama drops to 0. Men who have been alone for a long time become extremely protective of their peace. They've spent months or years building a quiet life with minimal stress. No emotional roller coasters, no arguments, no confusion, no mind games. So when someone enters their life bringing chaos, inconsistency, or emotional instability, they don't try to fix it. They simply walk away. What some people call cold is often just a man who refuses to return to unnecessary stress. 3. He becomes emotionally guarded. Time alone gives a man space to reflect on past experiences. And often, those reflections remind him why he chose distance in the first place. Maybe he was betrayed. Maybe he invested in someone who didn't value him. Maybe he watched loyalty get taken for granted. The longer he stays alone, the more he reinforces a simple belief. I was peaceful before you arrived, and I'll be peaceful if you leave. That mindset makes it incredibly hard for anyone to break through his emotional walls.
That's true.
4. He studies people instead of trusting them. A man who has been single for a long time stops rushing into connections. He observes. He watches patterns. He listens carefully. He pays attention to inconsistencies between words and actions. Instead of falling quickly, he analyzes. Instead of believing promises, he waits for proof. To some people, this makes him seem distant. But in reality, he's simply learned that attention and charm are cheap. Character is rare. 5. He becomes addicted to freedom. Freedom is powerful. Once a man gets used to living life entirely on his own terms, it becomes difficult to compromise. No checking in, no explaining decisions, no negotiating time, no adjusting plans. Relationships require sacrifice, patience, and shared control over life decisions. A man who has been independent for too long may start seeing those compromises as limitations rather than partnership. 6. He stops chasing love. At some point, the desire to pursue love slows down. Not because he hates relationships, but because he has learned that forcing connection often leads to disappointment. So he stops chasing. He stops begging for attention. He stops competing. If love happens naturally, he welcomes it. If it doesn't, he continues living his life just fine. A man who spends too long alone doesn't become heartless. He becomes selective. He stops chasing noise and starts protecting peace. And the truth is, once a man learns how to live happily without a relationship, the only person who will ever keep him is the one who adds more peace to his life than solitude ever did.
Okay, you are living in a parallel universe. I'm going to tell you why, but first, please like and share and follow if you like the content. It encourages me to make more, okay? So let's get to it. So before we get to the parallel universe part, let's talk about the Mandela effect and why this proves we are in a parallel universe. The Mandela effect in a nutshell is you remembering something completely different to what they say it is now. There's many different examples of it, all the way from your favorite movies and TV shows and songs and maps of the world and all sorts of interesting things. I've got tons of video on this on my channel. Check it out. The first occurrence of the Mandela effect was documented in 2009. And the reason for that significance is CERN, the Large Hadron Collider in Europe, which circles protons around this 27-kilometer track at the speed of light, did its first soft test in 2008. Not even a soft test, actually. It circled a proton around it, and that was a big, and that was a huge milestone. 2009 is when they actually collided two protons together, or whatever the heck it's called. That's way over my pay grade. You can Google it, though. At 99.9% the speed of light. And now many different people, from like child prodigies to super smart scientists and whatnot, say that when they did that, when they smashed those protons together at almost the speed of light, it actually pushed Earth into a parallel universe. Check out this quick vid.
Destroyed our universe. I mean, even when we thought about starting it, we thought our universe would implode, and then it didn't, and we're like, oh, it's okay. Well, maybe it did implode. We just instantly got shifted to another universe.
And that's your book. And that's why if you were born before 2008, 2009, and old enough to remember things like television programs from the 2000s or the early 90s, clothing, all sorts of different businesses, maps, they're different to what they say they are now, because in that parallel universe, it's the same but not the same. There's subtle differences, as you can see here from ChatGPT. So, parallel universe, I fully believe that happened. I mean, there is so much evidence of it now, and for someone to say, there's lots of people that argue with it, but they're not born before 2008. They're born in like 2010 or 2009, 2000, whatever, you know? So their universe is going to be the one that we're in now, not the one that we got pushed over from. Do you understand? So check out my other videos about the Mandela effect, and you'll see all of the craziness. And especially like if you were in your teens in the 90s, things are way different now than you remember them being back then. Hey, don't forget to like and follow if you did like.
Jamie Presley's that turned out to be true. 10. Jamie Presley really was an original Pussycat doll, performing with the burlesque troupe years before it became the famous pop group. 9. Long before starring in Poison Ivy 3, she worked as Drew Barrymore's body double in the very first Poison Ivy film at just 14-15 years old. 8. Presley was legally emancipated at 15, not due to family conflict, but so she could accept a solo modeling contract in Japan. 7. The thick Southern accent she used for Joy Turner is her real voice. She actually trained herself to hide it for most Hollywood roles. 6. Despite assumptions about IVF, she naturally conceived her twin boys at age 40 in a rare biological occurrence. 5. Her stunt work comes from real skill. She trained as a competitive gymnast for 11 years and once had Olympic ambitions. 4. Presley created a genuinely successful lingerie line, Jamie, designing many of the pieces herself before closing it in 2008. 3. In 2011, she was arrested for DUI with a .22% BAC, nearly triple the legal limit, an incident she later described as a life wake-up call. 2. My Name is Earl wasn't canceled for ratings. It died because NBC and 20th Century Fox couldn't reach a licensing deal, leaving the finale unresolved. 1. She produced and starred in the cult comedy Death to the Supermodels, proving she had ambitions behind the camera, as well as in front of it.
Animals that escaped from zoos you never knew. The last one will blow your mind. Number 1. Fu Manchu the orangutan. At the Omaha Zoo, an orangutan named Fu Manchu pulled off something straight out of a movie. He secretly hid a piece of wire in his mouth and used it to pick the locks of his enclosure, not just once but multiple times. Keepers were confused for weeks until they finally caught him in the act. He had literally been planning his escapes the whole time. Number 2. Ken Allen the escape artist. Ken Allen, another orangutan, became famous at the San Diego Zoo for escaping over and over again. He didn't break anything. He simply figured things out. He climbed walls that were designed to be impossible to scale and even let other orangutans out with him. Visitors loved him, but the zoo had a serious problem on their hands. Number 3. Cyril the sea lion. This one sounds unreal. Cyril escaped from the Central Park Zoo and somehow made it all the way to a pond in Prospect Park, about 7 miles away. He managed to travel across New York City without being stopped, avoiding traffic and people, before finally being discovered relaxing in the water. Number 4. Evelyn the gorilla. Evelyn wasn't just strong, she was smart. At the Los Angeles Zoo, she escaped her enclosure 5 different times, and each time she used a completely different method. Her ability to solve problems and adapt shocked both keepers and researchers studying animal intelligence. Number 5. Goldie the eagle. Goldie escaped from the London Zoo and spent 13 days flying freely around the city. People began spotting her everywhere, and she quickly became a local celebrity. Newspapers even gave daily updates on her location until she was finally and safely captured. Before I say the last one, make sure you hit that follow button to support the channel. Number 6. Rusty the red panda. Rusty escaped from the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. and ended up wandering through a nearby neighborhood. People were shocked to see a red panda casually walking around like it belonged there. His escape quickly went viral online, turning him into an internet celebrity before he was safely returned. 6.